Hi, I'm Michael Wan, your host for Michael Wan's Op-Ed Live, and this is LA County Assessor Jeffrey Prang. Our show, Op-Ed Live, is not about left or right, it's about right or wrong. Jeffrey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
It's been a while.
Back with you. It has been a while.
It's been a while.
Hope you're enjoying your summer.
I did. I went to Korea and Japan, and where you've been there like 20 years ago now?
More like closer to 30, 35 years, but I'll be there again.
Yeah, it was very humid and, wet in Japan. I missed the weather here.
We learn to appreciate the weather we have here in LA, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Especially when we travel.
Yes, we do. So this happened last Saturday. Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire financier, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide last Saturday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time. What's your thought about this whole thing?
Well, obviously this man, Jeffrey Epstein, was a monster. He was engaged in sex trafficking of minors. He created this entire
island
in order to abuse young women. He enlisted the support of his staff, of his aides, of apparently even his housekeeper to help identify and recruit girls to be abused. I guess the one question that was starting to be asked is, did he provide access to sexual favors to other powerful people in business and in government? I'm not surprised by his suicide because this was a guy who had more money than anybody could ever possibly use. He lived in absolute luxury and facing the rest of his life in jail as a convicted monster. I think I'd probably take my life too if I were him.
Yeah. Do you think he did all those that he's accused of? Bringing powerful people, serving the minors to them sexually?
It's too early to, at least based on the information that we've seen in the public, we've seen some allegations made by those who've claimed to be victims. I don't know. I've learned to be a little bit more reserved from news stories, to find out more about who these people are, what the background is behind their actions, to see what the details of their allegations are, and to see what the law enforcement agencies say about it. But if it's true, there's going to be a reckoning.
So this Epstein Island, it's supposed to be in Virgin Island, right?
I think it's in the Yes, I think it's in the Bahamas or Virgin Islands.
I think so.
I can't recall specifically.
Yeah, and if you check out the list, did you see the list of people who flew that flight, called Epstein Express, I think?
I did not see that.
So it showed people like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew.
Right.
And Chris Tucker, comedian Chris Tucker. And they had some famous figures there. Do you think there should be some kind of investigation, or?
Well, there is an investigation. I think obviously,
regarding it,
I think there's at least enough we need to ask those questions. I would want to reserve judgment on all of these celebrities because the man was a billionaire, and
so he can invite anybody he wants to.
These people all at that level of society, they all frequently will associate with one another. So it may not be unusual that powerful people want to hang around with a billionaire who could put them on private planes and take them to islands. Whether they engaged in his criminal activity is another question, but I think I'm eager to hear what the investigation will show.
But, I think the mainstream media has been portraying that Epstein used to be best buddies with Trump. You saw the TV footages, right, of them partying together back in the day in Mar-a-Lago.
Well, I think there at least is enough information to indicate that, I'm not going to make any judgment about it, but it appears, though, that there was a period of time where Trump did have a relationship with him, just like a lot of other people did as well. And I'm not saying his is better or any worse, but this guy, what always happens when you see somebody like Epstein, there's this monster, and if other people associated with him, they automatically want to say, well, you must be guilty as well. And I don't know that that's fair.
Yeah.
He's a billionaire who was a magnetic personality who attracted a lot of people around him because maybe he gave away campaign contributions, maybe he gave access to the good life to a lot of these folks. So their motivations could be lots of different things. I think Donald Trump's attempt to say that, hey, I didn't know this guy, didn't like him, belies the fact that for a number of years he did have some type of a relationship with him. And I'm not saying he did anything wrong, but it is what it is.
I'm only mentioning this because the mainstream media only portrays, you know how I'm skeptical about, some of their reportings, because they are trying to portray like he's one of his best buddies, but actually after 10 years later, after that footage, in Mar-a-Lago, it seems like Jeffrey Epstein was trying to have sex with a minor there, and Trump kicked him out, and I think he reported to the police, and he was very open about that whole investigation. So, but the media don't portray that side. So I see some issues there.
I don't know that I agree with that. They've gone through a litany of people who had connection with Jeffrey Epstein, and they talk. Well, Trump because he's the president. He's obviously going to be a bigger focus of attention because he's the president. Okay. But they've talked about Prince Andrew. They've talked about Bill Clinton.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
And I heard names like former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell.
George Mitchell. Yeah.
So the president is always going to get more attention, and I don't think that's because he's being picked on. I think it's because of who he is and the position he holds. If he were not to be president, he'd probably still be on the list, but if the current president's always going to get the most attention.
Did you even hear about like Bill Gates? Bill Gates' name has been also popping out, and it's just, I think this Ghislaine Maxwell, it seems like this lady, people are accusing her to be one of the connectors, mediators.
She's somebody who, based on what I've read, I would be much more interested to see what type of information there is about her. She was very close to him. That part of her job was to, assist him in his business. And if a part of his business was soliciting young girls for this island, I'd want to see people who are closely employed by him. One of the things I heard was that a housekeeper or a maid may have been involved. So all the people who worked for him, who were his employees, who were close to him, who would have had a more than passing opportunity to see this stuff, I would be much more interested to see have more information about them.
Did you see that Jeffrey Epstein Island temple thing with that weird blue lines with a golden top? Did you see that or not?
I didn't see that.
You didn't see
pictures of the island.
You did, right?
It looks like it was a nice island.
Okay, I think we don't have that picture ready right now, but if you look at that temple or whatever it is, people are saying that, and there are reports that he did these, he brought powerful people in Washington and also in Wall Street. He brought them there, and they had sexual acts there, and he secretly recorded that. So this was reported, he secretly recorded all of them. And it seems like Ghislaine Maxwell, the lady that we just talked about, she told one of her friends that they even recorded all of them, the powerful people, even in their bathrooms, restrooms, whatever they did there. I mean, even just very private things. Yeah. I'm not saying just sexual things. So Vanity Fair, it reported that. Do you believe that? What is your thought on those? That they blackmailed them pretty much?
I don't believe.
Like those powerful people.
I won't believe anything until evidence becomes available. Clearly, this guy was a monster.
Yeah.
Clearly, he was depraved and was willing to take a lot of steps.
Did you know about him before this whole thing? Did you Did you know who Jeffrey Epstein was?
I don't believe I did. I don't recall.
But I knew him. I followed this story closely because he was accused even back in the day, and and he was charged for it.
I may have heard of him, but it didn't stick in my mind. But he was fabulously wealthy, and he seemed to relish in building relationships with other rich and powerful people.
Yeah.
And so that is probably one of the risks of being another rich and powerful people is that people will flatter you if there are other rich people who offer access or opportunities to enjoy. Very few people would be adverse to going to a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So that's just a very rare thing that people don't. People don't have islands except if you're super rich. So if I got invited to one, I'd probably be intrigued as well. But the fact that people may have gravitated to him because he's offering things of interest or value is in and of itself not surprising. If he enlisted them in his activities, if there are recordings, that will all come out through the investigation, I assume. And if there were, then there's going to be some trouble.
Okay. Do you dismiss the whole thing? You know, there has been so many conspiracy theories regarding this issue, right? Even the mainstream media, like New York Times, Washington Post, even the New York Times, one guy wrote, in this case, conspiracy might have some truth to it. There was some kind of article like that, Washington Post and Associated Press, you know, the media that we all know. They're even talking a little bit more, digging a little bit more into this, rather than just saying, yeah, it is a suicide. Do you completely dismiss those notions?
No, because we don't know. I think it's important to apply the scientific method to this, just like we do to things in chemistry.
Yeah.
We need to observe and report. We need to find. Well, we know a little bit of information. All this speculation, for the moment, is just speculation. Okay. There are experts in law enforcement who are investigating who will tell us what they find. And all the rumors that go around, I think it's important not to come to conclusions until you know. And we are lay people, and we have the same access to public information. It's important that we not draw conclusions until we have
all the evidences, right? So what do you think about this New York Times article? Jeffrey Epstein death, 2 guards slept through checks and falsified records. They even falsified records.
Yeah, so that is a severe management administration problem for the federal jails. I've heard a few things and things that make sense to me. One is that that they're poorly staffed at that jail, so they probably have too few people doing too many things.
I heard that one of the guard was working overtime or something.
So there was a lot of them were working overtime. Some had worked multiple overtime shifts that very week. So it would not surprise me that some lower level employees who may be tired, who may be overworked, might do things to cut corners. I am surprised that they would cut corners with such a high profile case, though.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right?
And so, particularly at the the employees who did it, obviously it's an occurrence that should result in discipline or even termination in some cases. But the supervisors who were signing off on those time cards, who were signing off on the on their hours, who weren't making certain. If I had been the supervisor or the manager assigned to this guy, knowing that the whole world is watching, I'd want to make certain that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. It doesn't sound like that happened here. So it sounds like there was, from what I can tell, those sound like legitimate issues, and those are a cause for concern within the Justice Department.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this, it says that disclosures came as the guards and the warden at the jail were removed. You know, the guards did not check on him for 3 hours. They were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, right? Right. And his lawyer, Jeffrey Epstein, you know, he was on suicide watch initially, right? Because he tried to take him out 3-4 weeks ago, right?
They found marks on his neck, which they believed was an attempt at suicide, so they put him on suicide watch.
Yes, they put him on suicide watch, and then Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer came into the picture, and he recommended to the prison system that they want him out of that suicide watch. So they put him out, you know, of the suicide watch. To me, it doesn't make sense. If you try to commit suicide that year, I'm going to at least put you on a year-round suicide watch. Aren't you supposed to think that's that? I would
imagine that the federal prison system has policies and protocols to deal with suicide watch. I don't know what those are. I know that when I worked for the Sheriff's Department in the county jails, there were rules about when people would be on certain types of watch for certain behaviors, such as potential suicide. It seems to me, as a layperson from the outside, not knowing all the information, that if they believed he was on suicide watch 3 weeks ago, why did things happen in 3 weeks? And secondly, just the nature of the case. This high-profile billionaire who's probably going to go to jail for the rest of his life seems like the sort of guy who might say, hey, screw this, I can't go to my island anymore, I'm not going to stay in jail, I'm going to kill myself. He's already, 66 years old?
66.
So it seems to me that just common sense would have said that they should...
Well, he declared innocence, right? He didn't say that he didn't admit any of these wrongdoings. So to me, it doesn't make sense that he tried to commit suicide. I mean, if he tried to commit suicide, he should have been in a suicide watch. I don't know the protocols, like you said, of this, Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. I don't know their protocols, but it seems very suspicious. I went to one restaurant a couple nights ago, and the lady working there said she's so scared about, She was so scared. She really believes that somebody took him out. We don't know, because powerful people, like Bill Clinton went to the Epstein Island 26 times. This was reported in the mainstream media, New York Times, Associated Press. They reported all this. And some have been very suspicious that it's the powerful people who took him out, because he was talking. He was singing like a canary, and he was naming names, and those famous figures that we just mentioned. Probably they might not have done anything wrong, but to me, I would open a huge possibility that could have been what's been going on.
Bill Clinton could have?
No, I'm not talking about Bill Clinton. I'm talking about whoever is, whoever the powerful person is. I'm not talking about Clinton, but what I'm saying is he knows all these powerful people. They don't want to be named.
Right.
And if it's true what Vanity Fair reported, not just Vanity Fair, some other media outlets reported, that if Jeffrey Epstein was videotaping all these people's sexual acts on the minors, I think they're pretty much working like a puppet. Let's just hypothetically go there, since this conspiracy theories are flying around. Then there's a lot of motivation for the people outside, the powerful people, to try to take him out, right?
Theoretically, but I think that is conspiratorial.
Okay.
There's the fact that there's all types of administrative and management problems with him in jail. The thought that somebody from outside, particularly somebody from outside the government, would have the ability to get in there and create the conditions for him to be taken out. It would require not just a conspiracy theory, but you'd almost have to indict those guards and that warden for being part of that conspiracy. And if somebody was going to engage in that sort of conduct, they almost certainly would have to be in government, currently in government, because to get inside a federal institution, to bribe people to help kill somebody, I think that Jeffrey Epstein was probably very highly motivated to take his own life.
I'm only saying this because this was such a high-profile case. Everybody was paying attention to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The left wanted, they were suspicious about some kind of connection with Trump. The right is very suspicious about some kind of connection with Bill Clinton. So I think that's why it was such a high-profile situation. And to me, what makes it more suspicious about this whole thing is what is this, Metropolitan Correction Center?
Which is a federal institution under the Department of Justice,
yes,
part of the federal correction system.
Yes, so I'm not letting them go out easily too. But what I'm saying is they never had a suicide. They only had one case of suicide in the past 40 years before Jeffrey Epstein case happened. There were 3 attempted, but 1 succeeded in taking himself out. So to me, how could this just happen at just this time? When we were all suspicious, some kind of connection. I was very suspicious about Jeffrey Epstein. I'll be honest with you, Jeffrey. I've been following Jeffrey Epstein for quite a while. Miami Herald broke a lot of news regarding this. He was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months or something like that before.
13 months.
13 months, but there was a huge uproar. So one of the Trump guy had to resign, right?
He was the former federal prosecutor who and he had been appointed as Secretary of Labor.
Secretary of Labor. And I agree with that. He should resign for those. To me, that whole thing was suspicious. This whole thing doesn't make sense. It doesn't make logical sense. Common sense doesn't really work here. I don't know why this whole thing. I just don't understand how you can have 2 guards sleeping through, and checks and falsified records.
There are problems.
It happens all the time.
There are problems in jails all across the country. We had those problems in some of the county jails in the past. I think one thing I did read is that this Metropolitan Detention Center has had problems administratively in the past. They've been criticized in the past for conditions and for not applying best practices. I think it's important not to conflate 2 different things. I think there's an issue with what happened in that jail. The reason that some on the left are pointing fingers at Trump and his association, and those on the left are pointing at Clinton and his association.
Because it's under his Justice Department,
It's because everybody wants to use, this guy was a monster, and everybody wants to use it for political advantage to try to tag the other side.
Okay.
And I don't think we have any information right now other than the coincidence that this rich and powerful billionaire hung around with other rich and powerful billionaires. And that he had, those things to me are different. And I've not heard anything that would cause me to bring them to together at this point.
So President Trump, he said, find out if Bill Clinton went to Epstein's island. Do you think he's just using this as a political point, to score some political points, right?
I actually think that's pretty outrageous to if he's going to point the finger at Bill Clinton for going there, he needs to give the same instructions for them to investigate him and his connection with Jeffrey Epstein. There's lots of people who hung around with this guy, and maybe they're involved and maybe they were not. But what he should do as the president is keep at arm's length from the investigation and allow the professionals to do their job.
So we just gotta wait and see what's gonna happen.
I think so.
All right, okay. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. So John Lee, there was a race on Tuesday, August 13th. Yes, it was a special election. John Lee and Lorraine Lundquist made it to the runoff, and they finally squared off on Tuesday. The result came out, and John Lee was victorious. He's a Korean American, so obviously, our paper had some kind of interest of this race.
Two Korean Americans out of 15 on the LA City Council.
Like back in 2014, we had none, but now we have two. So
what's interesting, though, is that for your viewers who don't know, John Lee represents the northwest San Fernando Valley, kind of based in Porter Ranch and Northridge. It is historically been the most conservative neighborhood in the city of LA. Not an area which is known for being the hotbed of the Korean American culture. And just kind of as David Rue won in a district which has little pieces of Koreatown.
Yeah, you're right.
But I actually think it's really, just kind of aside from the election, the fact that we're demonstrating that LA voters are voting for the candidates they think are best able to do the job. Their demographic background. We have two Korean people who are not really representing Koreatown. And I think that's actually a really positive statement about politics in the city of LA. But but John was, as you know, he was a City Hall insider. He was chief of staff to former council member
Mitchell Englander.
He's been around for a lot of years. There was a lot of interest on the Democratic side that Lorraine Lundquist, who was a professor of
CSUN, California State of Northridge.
And she was a science professor of, I can't remember what her specialty was. But but a lot of Democrats were hoping that because there are now more registered Democrats than Republicans in that district, they thought they could pick up that seat. I think in the end, what helped John was he's been around a long time. He was a chief of staff, so he knew the community pretty well. Probably through a lot of his official work, he could go and represent the council member. It was a special election, so voter turnout was less. And in low turnout races, conservative voters tend to predominate, so that probably helped him as well.
So do you think he should be a little bit worried for the next year's, so the next year he has this March 3rd election, right?
I don't think so. Now he is the duly elected council member, so
he has the edge.
LA City voters don't tend to kick out incumbents unless they've done something wrong, so a lot of people will give him the benefit of the doubt because he is the incumbent. Even though he's a Republican, he is not he's not an ideologue. He's not a hardcore Republican. I doubt he will.
You're supposed to be nonpartisan in city council, right?
It's a nonpartisan race. Yes, that's correct. And I doubt his policies will do things that will offend Democrats by any significant measure. A lot of the establishment, which may have been divided, because I know a lot of council members supported Lorraine. My guess is that most of the elected establishment in the city of LA will probably support him for re-election.
Yeah, they already invited him yesterday. Herb Weston, the council president, called him early morning, and he called him. We want to invite you, congratulate you, to win the whole CD12 race. In the Korean community, there was a huge controversy because CD4 councilman David Ryu endorsed Lorraine Lundquist. I think you already know that. But not just that, he did robocall. Not just that, he even mailed with his picture and Lorraine's picture together. And not just that, he went to canvass in CD12 with Lorraine. So there was a huge uproar in the Korean American community. And I would say probably like 99 out of 100, they were all outraged about what David Ryu did. they were really angry, many of them, because we got a bunch of phone calls and emails on our editorial room, and some of them were even motivated to vote against Lorraine because of that. What do you think about this whole thing?
Well, I recognize that in that scenario, that especially for Korean Americans, that must be difficult because the opportunity to have another representative of that community get elected to a high public office in the city was probably very exciting. David he's now a veteran council member, but he's probably has more in common politically with Lorraine than he does with John. And I think one thing I've noticed about David Rue is that he he's got very firm convictions. So he believes.
Do you really?
I think he believes that David's been willing to take on the establishment. He's been willing to say some unpopular things.
Are you talking about the development issue?
Development issue and dealing with lobbyists and fundraising and
only that front. I would say only that front. But other than that, he's been very focused on becoming one of the insiders. That's how I see it.
I don't know that I would agree with that, but what I can say is that the fact that David is a progressive Democrat and he supported another progressive Democrat running for an office in a body that he currently serves, he put his. He simply chose the person he was most in sync with.
I find a problem there because David Ryu, when he ran his campaign back in 2015, 14, 15, he was telling people around that we need a Korean American voice there in the city council. And then when he went there, according to reports and people I heard, that he said we need another one, but it was only in rhetoric. What I've been hearing is he wants to be the sole councilman and sole elected official there because he was extremely worried about his fundraising to be dry. Because I think almost half of his fundraising, I think he raised almost $700,000, and probably half or even more of that money came from Korean American pockets. So I think to me, it seems like that is more compelling. And why did he have to go to this extent? No, we've never seen anything like this. The people who are insiders and outsiders, they all said that they've never seen anything like this before. Some of them told me that they're never going to give a single penny to him anymore. So there's a huge uproar. Still, a lot of people are still angry about this whole thing.
Well, when I ran for assessor in 2014 the first time, David Rue was a big supporter of mine.
Okay,
I think he's got excellent judgment.
Or that was a good judgment. I would say that was a good judgment. All right, okay. But anyway, we all say congratulations to John Lee. Probably you're going to have to work with him too, right?
Absolutely.
All right, okay. And he came to today, and he can't speak Korean well, but I think he wants to build that bond with the Korean community.
I think we can all say that we want John to be successful at his job. The city of LA has a lot of big issues, from homelessness and housing to infrastructure, and we need the LA City people to be really focused on those issues. And I'm going to do my part to make sure I can work with John to see that he's successful.
Yeah. So Godspeed to John. Well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.